Well, a little earlier, the foreign policy chief of the European Union, Kaja Kallas, had this to say.
The situation in Gaza is catastrophic. The aid that Israel has allowed in is, of course, welcomed, but it's a drop in the ocean. Aid must flow immediately, without obstruction and at scale, because this is what is needed. It is clear from today's discussion that there is a strong majority in favor of review of Article 2 of our association agreement with Israel. So we will launch this exercise, and in the meantime, it is up to Israel to unblock the humanitarian aid. Saving lives must be our top priority.
Kaja Kallas there, the EU foreign policy chief. Let's bring in Noga Tarnopolsky. Noga, of course, is our correspondent joining us live from Jerusalem. Noga, a very good evening to you. The pressure then truly mounting on Benjamin Netanyahu and his government. The situation in Gaza appears to be going from bad to worse, judging by the image you're seeing coming out of the territory. Give us your take on the situation as it stands right now.
Well, we've just heard from the Israeli army that just over 90 trucks were able to enter Gaza today. Yesterday was just 5, but the UN says that none of them, 0, were able to deliver the necessary aid to any of the 2 million Gazans stuck in the enclave. So despite Prime Minister Netanyahu's announcement that he was resuming aid, humanitarian aid into Gaza, that doesn't actually appear to be happening. And that may be one of the things that spurred on what now feels like a veritable diplomatic tsunami that is beginning to envelop Israel, not just the EU decision, which Emerald mentioned, which is very dramatic, and this extremely sharp letter of warning from Israel, some of Israel's closest allies. I would also like to point out that the United States has not had a word to say about this. The United States has not come out to defend the Israeli government, has not condemned the European move. And in fact, it may be significant that the Europeans decided to act after Donald Trump came here to the Middle East, to this region, and simply skipped over Israel. Finally, I'd like to add to this that Adam Boehler, President Trump's hostage envoy, today said in an interview that Donald Trump wants to see this war wrapped up.
Indeed, that may be what he wants, but there's no sign this is going to happen, Noga, is it? Because the shelling continues.
That's right. The airstrikes continued. We have not yet seen the massive ground invasion that the Israeli government warned us we'd see, but it is non-stop Air Force strikes on Gaza with very little information about it from the Israeli army. But I do think that Israel cannot act completely alone. It will not be able to continue endlessly this operation in Gaza if it becomes something of a pariah state, as today one of the opposition leaders, Yair Golan, warned. He used that term. He said Israel was turning into a pariah state he said, with ministers making insane statements about a nuclear type attack on Gaza or killing babies. He said no sane nation can act like this.
There is a real dichotomy of opinion, isn't there, within government, within the Knesset on this issue, as you're citing some politicians speaking the way you've just said, and of course then you have Netanyahu's cabinet, which is the most right-wing ever.
That's right. You have even Finance Minister Smotrich, who speaks in messianic terms about a takeover of a Jewish theocracy in Gaza, and the Prime Minister does not reprimand him or in any way sanction him. I think this might be a good moment to remember that Netanyahu cobbled together his current coalition in December of 2022, bringing in to support him absolute extremists who had never before had any role in the Israeli polity and had never had roles of public responsibility. So, for example, this finance minister, Bezalel Smotrich, who was mentioned obviously in condemnation today in the British Parliament, is a former thug, a West Bank settler leader who refers to himself as a proud fascist, as a proud homophobe, who said that delivery wards should be segregated. These are people, many of Netanyahu's ministers, who are on the absolute fringes of society until facing corruption charges and losing support, both among the Israeli voters and the parliamentary support, he decided to bring them in to support this government. And that decision has brought Israel to the extreme danger point it finds itself at now.
As you're talking to us, Noga, we're seeing images, archive images, but recent images from the Gaza Strip, bodies being carried through the streets. The deaths, as you say, keep coming. The UN warning 14,000 babies could die over the next 48 hours if the aid doesn't get through. And we're hearing, of course, it is getting through in trickles, but not enough. That is the situation. You mentioned a little earlier about a Witkoff plan being rejected. Can you tell us more about that?
Yes, there's another very strange thing happening. The Israeli government presented a plan now many months ago. Netanyahu presented a plan which involved the release of a certain number of the hostages, the Israeli hostages still being held by Hamas, in exchange for a temporary truce, much on the lines of previous truces, hostage prisoner exchange deals we've seen. And after the American government basically okayed that plan, Netanyahu started referring to it as the Witkoff plan. Now, it has never, to my knowledge, been advanced by Steve Witkoff, who has become President Trump's #1 foreign policy enforcer. But the Israeli government continues to refer to it as the Witkoff plan. It is violently opposed by the family members of Israeli hostages, who call it, using the Nazi term, who call it a selektia plan, in which the Israeli government will choose who will live and who will die. Nonetheless, the Israeli government tonight issued a statement that it has accepted the terms of this plan and that Hamas has rejected it. We have yet to hear from Hamas. We have yet to hear any confirmation from the Americans. This is very much breaking news. But Netanyahu did take this opportunity to announce that he is bringing back to Israel most of the members of the Israeli negotiating team sent to Qatar.
When I was with you back in January, February in Tel Aviv, Steve Witkoff was there, crossed what has become known as Hostage Square. He was mobbed by people trying to find out what was happening and being hailed for bringing back the hostages and getting towards peace. It has completely changed now, hasn't it?
It hasn't. He was here again last week in scenes that would have been very familiar to you at the time of the release of the Israeli-American IDF soldier, Dan Alexander. And again, he not only was mobbed by families who have no support from the Israeli government and no encounters with members of the Israeli government who don't reach out to them. So the fact that Steve Witkoff decided to stop at Hostage Square again after the release of this soldier, and he then spent 2 hours speaking with his family, he's a popular figure. But it does appear increasingly that Donald Trump himself and his team are simply losing patience with the entire situation here. I don't want to say that they're just losing patience with Benjamin Netanyahu, though it appears clear that they're either losing patience or they're getting bored. They certainly condemn Hamas, but it appears that with an Israeli unwillingness to declare any terms which are acceptable to Israel for an agreement to end this war, not just a truce, but to end the war, that the Americans may be turning their attention elsewhere.
Noga Tarnopolsky, for now, thank you very much indeed for giving us the very latest on that situation, which, as you say, is moving, although for